Aloha everybody, and welcome to the introductory unit of the class, where I'm going to explain a little bit about different perspectives and how you might analyze from different perspectives, and introduce you to the first topic, which is a nice simple one. We're going to talk about the invention of the wheel, and historians can't agree exactly on who invented the wheel and where it was first invented, although there are a few claims to it. But it's an interesting topic to think about. If you think about a society that doesn't have the wheel at all, and then all of a sudden somebody invents it, and the difference it could make. And actually it wasn't necessarily so sudden an invention, so this is a bit of a thought exercise, and I don't expect it to be you to be perfectly historically accurate, but this is really an exercise in beginning to analyze a situation or a technological advancement from different perspectives. So I want to talk about perspective. Perspective is like different colored lenses on a camera. If you're a photographer, you will know that if you put a different color lens on the camera, the landscape or the thing you're filming looks different. And if you put a blue one on or a green one on it, it looks different. There's something different about it when you see it from a different perspective. And also you could perspective could be how close or far you're away from a certain situation, what details you can see, or etc. So perspective is something you understand, but from an analysis perspective situation, or analyzing a situation from a different perspective, here's what we're going to do in this class. So you're going to analyze the situations or the impact on society of the technological advancements from three different perspectives, which will be economics perspective, sociological perspective, and psychological perspective. But to kind of introduce you to this topic of perspectives, I'm going to give you a kind of a situation from my own life to kind of identify how you might think about analyzing from different perspectives. So I'm going to give you the example of when pretty much all of my children have been young. The situation has existed. Maybe they're 3 years old, and they're at this point at the dinner table where they're refusing to eat something or refusing to finish off something. They just want their dessert. They want to get right to it. They don't want to eat the good healthy stuff. And I'm sure everybody in the world has gone through this situation. We all have. But there's different perspectives you could analyze the situation from that I'm going to explain to you. And in our home, it goes something like this. My wife analyzes the situation from what I'm going to call an emotional perspective. And I analyze the situation from what I'm going to call an authoritative discipline perspective. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So when my wife sees the child who is crying or doesn't want to finish and is disturbed because they want to get to their dessert, she sees the situation from the emotions. Our child is having bad emotions, is not happy, and my wife wants to resolve that and help the child to have a happy state. So she's seeing it from the perspective of emotions, and so if you're looking at it from a perspective of emotions only, then that's quite correct. The child is not having a good emotion, and also not only that, it causes maybe a negative emotion in the parent, and altogether is emotionally a little bit negative. And so the resolution is to just give the child the dessert, and then everybody's emotions are resolved. So that's an emotional perspective. And if you were going to write about the situation and analyze it from an emotional perspective, you'd write about, the parent is experiencing this emotion at this time, and the child is experiencing this emotion at this time, and if it's resolved like this, then these emotions can take place. So you'd be discussing the situation using terms of emotions. Okay, so, but then what about the other side? So there's me, the dad, sitting on the other side thinking, well, wait a minute, emotions are important, but what about the authoritative disciplinary situation that's going on? Because in my mind, what I'm seeing is the child is pushing their boundaries and trying to exert their own authority. But this is something I've observed in all of my children. There comes a point where they want to be in charge. They want to do what they want to do, and they want the dessert. They don't want to mess around with vegetables, and so they push their boundaries and see if they can enforce their own authority. Say, I'm in charge. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. and that's, you know, this is the perspective I'm seeing it from. And if you are writing it from what I'm calling the discipline authoritative perspective, you might write that the child is trying to stamp their authority, and the parent is trying to enforce some discipline on the situation, with a long-term view to the child understanding that they're not in charge, that they sometimes have to do what they're asked to do, and they can't just have their way all the time. Because in my view, and maybe I'm not saying this is right or wrong as parents, maybe it's the way I was brought up, but what I'm observing is that if the children at that age are allowed to just get whatever they want whenever they want, just to resolve their emotions, and they'll spend the rest of their life doing that. If they, you know, they'll just want to resolve any situation by getting what they want, to have the positive emotion they think that they're after at that particular time. And that in my opinion doesn't allow for well-disciplined, self-disciplined people in society who obey rules, and especially in a church context, who do what they're asked to do, not necessarily always what they want to do. So this is what's going on in my mind as I'm observing the situation. I'm thinking long term. And maybe that's also another perspective. You could think about the short term versus the long term perspective. You know, what are the effects going to be long term, or what are the effects going to be short term? But as I'm talking about it, maybe I'd write from an I don't know what to call this thing, but an authoritative discipline perspective. Maybe if you're analysing it from that perspective, you'd be writing that something like, you know, in this situation, while the child is screaming because they do not want to eat their vegetables because they want to move on to their to the cake or the brownies or whatever it is, then they are trying to stamp their own authority on the situation and get what they want, rather than doing what, you know, what somebody else, somebody external is trying to get them to do, whilst the parent is trying to enforce rules and consequences on the child, so that they understand that if they don't finish their dinner, that they don't get their dessert, that kind of thing. And by the way, my observation is when children are allowed to just kind of do whatever they want and get what they want when they want it, they don't necessarily turn into bad people, but later on in life they always act this way when they just, as long as they've got what they want, they're happy. But if they don't, then they scream in various different ways. Whereas children who, to some degree, have been disciplined so that they understand there are consequences and they can't always have what they want, those children grow up and seem to have in their future that they can understand rules and consequences and discipline, and that affects how they act in the church and in the gospel as well as in the rest of life. So that, you know, there are extreme examples, and I think maybe sometimes mum's right, sometimes dad's right, and maybe you should get a bit of both. But sorry, I'm digressing. I'm talking about children. You'll have your own fun deciding how to deal with that when you have your own children. But from a perspectives situation, you can see now how you could write about that situation from different perspectives. So that was just a fun example, so to introduce you to the topic of writing from different perspectives. But you're going to write from the perspective of sociology, psychology, and economics. So let me just briefly describe these three areas. So economics. If you're going to analyse something from an economics perspective, and I'm going to give you other links I want you to study to make sure you understand this better, but if you are analysing from an economics perspective, then you're going to analyse the situation from the perspective of what's going on with the money, with the trading of goods, with the transportation of goods, with the income that people are earning, maybe the taxation, how the money flows and to who it goes to, and where the wealth is. But this is all about the economics of the situation. The buying and selling, the trading, the transportation, the resources that are allocated or required or necessary, and all those kind of terms. That's how you would analyse something from an economics perspective. And like I said, there'll be more information for you to read about on that. Then there is the sociological perspective. And sociology is all about groups, social groups. So what are the interactions between different peoples in the groups, and what kinds of groups are there? In a family situation, you would talk. You know, there are groupings of siblings, and then parents, and then cousins, and extended family groupings. and you may analyze a situation from how these groupings interact with each other, and what are the how do they communicate, what are the issues which each group deals with, and how does that impact each other group, and how do people within the groups interact with each other. It's all about people within groups, and how those groups interact with each other, and the relationships between the groups, and the dynamics, and how they affect one another, and the issues that each group deals with. And again, I'm paraphrasing that, but you need to read more about it on the links that I'll provide for you. And then there's the perspective of psychology, and psychology is all about what's happening inside a person. So you've got sociology, which is external, the person within a group, and then the groups and how they interact with each other. And then psychology is all about what's inside. And in fact, in modern psychology, it includes how the brain is functioning. So, and I don't mind if you talk about things from a neuroscience perspective. If you want to research that, that's actually a pet topic of mine. I really enjoy studying neuroscience. But anyways, psychology is about the emotions inside, about what's going on inside, how a person thinks, feels about themselves, thinks about themselves, how they interpret within themselves the situation, and their motivations. And how their personal ego and understanding about themselves has developed to the point that it's at. And so basically how it affects you inside. You think and feel and are motivated about things. So that's a really kind of brief explanation of the different perspectives. So this will be a really interesting first try at analysing something from the three different perspectives. Your assignment will be to write a 3-page paper, and 1 page per perspective, on the technological advancement of the invention of the wheel. So from those 3 different perspectives, how did the invention of the wheel impact society? And these are really fun things to think about, because we don't have all of the answers, because we don't know exactly what it was like before and exactly what it was like just afterwards. So we kind of have to think creatively, or do our best guess in some cases about those situations, especially when it's so far back as the wheel, because that's going back 5,000 years. And in reality, historians know very little. Sometimes we think we know a lot, but in reality, history is very difficult to know that it's accurate, because how do we know? We only have to impose the views that we have now about things on the past, and do our best in interpreting them. So with that all in mind, what I'm trying to say is I don't expect you to have historical accuracy in your interpretation of the technological advancement of the invention of the wheel, but I do want you to think seriously about the impact it had on society, or you think it had on society, and what are the long-term impacts, the short-term impacts from those 3 different perspectives. And I'm just rambling on. I'm trying to say the same things many times. I'm sorry about that. What I want you to do is just have a good try at it. I'll give you lots of feedback on your first essay, and then in this class you will write essays. This is just a first attempt, but in the essays you will write 3 5-page research papers, where you will have to cite articles and books that you can find in libraries about the different topics. And then you will also do presentations on video. And I'd like to briefly explain about that. When you're doing your oral presentations, your video essays, or video presentations as we call them, I do want to see this much of you at least, the top half of your body, because you're doing a presentation. And you have to treat it as if you were standing up in class doing a class presentation. You will also do discussions, which are a little bit more informal, where you can just be sitting right in front of your webcam. We do need to see your face, and we do need to see it light enough that we can actually see you, and we do need to hear you properly. But when you're doing your presentation, I want you to make sure you dress appropriately, as if you were doing a presentation. Not necessarily like a full-on business presentation, but reasonably smart, as you would be if you were doing your presentation in a classroom. And I'll let you interpret what that means, but think about it. And then also, please remember, you do need to be in clothing standards when you're doing any video. And please remember to abide by the honour code. It's important. I know people are always pushing boundaries a little bit, and I don't know why that is. So I want to encourage you, both in the week and on Sundays when you're at church, please make sure you keep the honour code. it's really important that you keep in the centre of your experience as a student the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Saviour is more important than any of the other things that we do. He is real. I will tell you that many times in the classroom. I have so many experiences with the Saviour to tell you that I know He is real. I know the gospel is real. I know that miracles happen. I know that He has the power to heal. And all these things are real. And if that's the case, then it's in our interest to do what is right, to be humble enough to just keep the commandments as we're asked to. It's no big deal if we're asked to dress this way or that way by the honor code. We shouldn't stress about it. Just do what we're asked to, and then we can be at peace. So what I'm trying to say is, in your videos, you do have to make sure you are dressed according to the honor code. If you're a guy, make sure you're clean shaven, and if you're a girl, make sure you're well, both of you, boys and girls, make sure your clothing's appropriate. We have had some sisters who've just come back from the beach, I guess, and they get onto their webcam and do their video, and they've forgotten that they're still just in their swimsuit. Well, that's not appropriate. You wouldn't wear a swimsuit in the classroom. And by the way, a word about swimsuits. Sisters, please make sure you're wearing one-piece swimsuits at the beach. You know the honor code. You know what's right. I do not know why it is you would be pushing those boundaries, because I'm not sure you really want to end up with the kind of guys you'll attract if that's your aim by really pushing the limits on the clothing standards. There's a reason for them, and you can perfectly enjoy yourself in one-piece swimsuits. I have 5 children, and I will and I tell my boys that when they're ready to date, there's a certain type of sister in the church that they should be looking for. And that's going to be one of the things I'm telling them to look for, the clothing standards, how they treat them, how they treat the sacredness of their own body, and how they treat the rules, and how they care for each other, and how or how people care for each other, and how they live the gospel and keep the church commandments, but also their heart, and whether their heart is centered on the Saviour Jesus Christ. These are the kind of things I teach my children. So once again, I'm rambling on, but I recommend you keep the honor code. It is important, and the gospel is real. So that's why it is important to do the things we're asked to do. So I'm sorry, I'm lecturing you. I don't mean to do that. I just know the benefits of keeping the commandments. I joined the church when I was 19 years old. I know what it's like not to have the church in my life, and I can tell you right now, it's the most amazing thing to have the gospel in your life. It's real, it's right, and it will bless our lives if we live it. And I know that. So these are the kind of things I'm going to ask you to think about as you're doing your presentations, your videos. Keep it within the honor code in all your videos, and in the 3 major presentations you're doing on video. I want to see kind of at least half of your body. If you want to do the whole body and see you as if you're doing a presentation, as long as I can hear you, that's fine. It might be difficult with the technology you have to hear you if you're way back. But at least this kind of level, so that I can see your face, but also how your general communication skills. So that's it. Have fun with this first assignment, and most of the videos will not be this long. I do apologise, but I do need you to, whenever there is a video, you need to watch it, and I'm going to test you on what I say in these videos. So good luck. Let me know if you've got any problems. I'm here to help. I feel that every student is important, and you're important to me, and I will do my best to support you. So do let me know if you need any help. Mahalo.